Okay. And we're back here on Kickstart Your Week on Limerick City Community Radio, your city, your station, your voice, and on the Having a Life While Making a Living YouTube channel. And we are joined by our special guest, Patrick. You see, this is live radio, right? And our special guests today, Suzanne Griffin, all the way from Donegal, up in beautiful Donegal. If I'm getting this right, Suzanne, you're originally from Donegal and you're back in Donegal, but there was a whole story in between those 2 points. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I originally from Donegal, left. Like most Donegal people, I think, for university at 18, and then kind of stayed away, and mainly stayed away probably from lack of job prospects at the time, and relocated and settled in the city, in Cork. And then just it's coming up to 2 years now, and we relocated back to Donegal, and I managed to drag a Cork man with me.
That mustn't have been easy.
No, I think it's taken about a year.
Only a year? Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's taken about a year. Still looks for Cork products in the supermarket, and he still asks for Cork beer when I'm out doing shopping. So he's still feeling the twang, I think, from home.
Wait, what's that, like Tenora lemonade and stuff?
Yeah. Feel best.
yeah. Excellent. So did you go to college in Cork then and stayed around, or?
No, I went to college in Waterford. To be honest, I picked the furthest college away from Donegal that I could find when I was 18, and I jumped in the bus, and my father worked expressway for Bus Éireann at the time. So I got complimentary travel. So travel there wasn't a problem. And also I always felt like I was close enough to home, because I could just, once I seen a Bus Éireann bus, I could just jump on the bus and go home. But I went to Waterford IT to study, and then up to Belfast after that, and then back to Cork. So yeah.
That's quite a trip. What did you study in Waterford?
In Waterford, I did recreational leisure management, and then that went into a degree. So the undergrad was a business leisure, and then the degree program then was in sports science, and then from there I went into sports science then in Jordanstown with a master's.
What drew you into that field?
Do you know? Initially, it was sports psychology. I love sports psychology, and I did my undergrad thesis on sports psychology because I got in my college place. I got through. I was a county ladies Gaelic football player, so I got my place in college through my achievements in sport. So that drew me to the sports. And at the time, it was the only other sports course was Limerick. And it was impossible to get into Limerick unless you had like huge points. And I didn't feel like I wanted to move to the UK. That was just a little bit too big of a step. So Waterford was the next step. And I was under Jerry Fitz down there, who was basketball coach for Ireland at the time. And he was big into, I had him for sports psychology, and I loved visualization techniques. And so at the time I got an opportunity to go to New York to Ithaca College to do a postgrad, to a master's degree in sports psychology. And then I quivered, and I decided I couldn't get work in sports psychology because at that time, and we're talking 30 years ago now, well, 25 years ago, that's my age now, there was no sports psychology. Like, it wasn't a thing. There wasn't a thing you could get a job in. So I then got offered an exercise physiology science course in Jordanstown. So still I'm not, well, I've kind of doubled back now, but I went with Jordanstown then, because of my sport, because I was still playing county football, I got full scholarship to that, whereas Ithaca, I would have been a bit more costly to get to Ithaca. Yeah, God, there's flashbacks there, Patrick, now of a lifetime ago.
So we've been, yeah, I know, a lifetime ago. Glad. We've traveled from Donegal to Waterford and back to Belfast. But you mentioned Cork as well.
Yeah, well, Cork is where I ended up because both Waterford and Belfast were education. They were just university. And while I went back to Belfast, I was able to still go up and down, travel up and down for county training in Donegal. So I was able to stay. And at that time, as a Donegal player, we were still striving for our first All Ireland. So I was as part of the team that was nearly there, and I didn't want to walk away in case the next year was the year they were going to win the All Ireland. Yeah. And that's exactly actually what happened. Because the year I finished and I traveled, I got a job in University College Cork in their new sports arena, the Mardyke Arena initially opened up. So I went for my master's degree down for that job in University College Cork. And then that year, Donegal won their first Junior All Ireland. So I took myself off and I found the team in Cork that I knew that had a possibility of winning a Club All Ireland. And I got in there and we won a club. I won a Club All Ireland with the Cork team. But at that time, do you know, Patrick, that was my focus. Like football, winning the All Ireland. You know, I was doing a course somewhere about an interest in sport. Hadn't really got a clue what job I was going to do. And like most people that come out of college, you think you're qualified and you think you're going to walk into a job, and then reality hits and you're not really qualified to do anything in particular. And I remember coming out with my degree and my master's, and the only job that I could get straight away was a lifeguard job because I had a lifeguard qualification. And that was to get paid. That was what I did. I worked in Queen's in Belfast, PE Centre. And that's what I did, lifeguard and gym, because those were two qualifications for a particular thing that I could do. Whereas my master's degree and no experience didn't amount to any route into anything in particular. Yeah.
And it's sometimes hard, you know, when you're playing sports at that level.
Yeah.
And combining that with studies, that brings its own stresses, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, because I mean, in my course in Waterford, I was surrounded by it was all sports. I mean, there was a lot of hurlers in my course, golfers, basketball players, and they were all there through scholarships, maybe from their sports. So they all know, as well as having to play for university, you still have to go home and play for the club that sponsored you. So it was a lot of traveling in and out. But plenty of time for good times and plenty of time to get the work done at the end of the day. When you look back now and you think, you know, how you did it, it's just, you know, you're in the bubble, aren't you? You just, stuff gets done, because when it comes to it, when you get a date to submit, you submit.
But it also shows to me how resilient we can be. If we focus on things we really want in life, how resilient we can be as human beings, right?
Absolutely. I mean, even, you know, when I was in Cork, when I started my business down there, Cork Pilates, I started working with the Munster team. And even when those guys were coming in, they were all coming from different university courses as well that they had to do on their rest days or get in and out doing modules when they can. And, you know, courses could take them years to do. I mean, a 3-year course done in modules when they could do it could take 6 years. So they promoted that for them to have something to stand by when they finished their course. But that was to do in their own time when they could. They still had a full schedule of training to do with the Munster Academy while they were doing that. So it's definitely a lot of work as an athlete and education, because it's a double-edged sword of you have to perform and then you have to complete your studies.
No, absolutely. I know one or two of the Munster guys that actually had to quit in their 20s because of injuries, and they had that study and those diplomas to fall back on, and it was really important for guys like that. So you made a bit of a jump there without properly knowing it, Suzanne. You made a bit big of a jump of like, well, I got a job in the new Mardyke Arena in UCC, and then I set up Cork Pilates. How do you link those two together?
Do you know, I went down for the job. I went down for UCC. I went down to University College Cork. I went down as a junior manager initially. And I said 2 years and then I'm off to travel the world. That was my plan. And then when I got down there, I was promoted to business development in the Mardyke Arena, and then was involved in InterVarsity sports down there as well. But I find that the higher up you go in an organization, the more paper pushing you do. So all the fun stuff of setting up programs, integrating with your customer, and the fun part of your job, which is, you know, inventing knowledge and stuff, you end up giving that to the person next to you to run. And then you're stuck up in the office doing customer care, or, you know, the paper trail through all of this, and the accounts through all of this, and more of the project building, which is fine, but I really missed the I missed the teaching. I missed the fun part of the engagement with the people that you're working with. I mean, one of the things I brought down with me from when we worked in Queens and Belfast is they had an Energize Your Life program, which brought older people from the community into the university on quiet times, like in the morning time when the students weren't using them, and they got to try out different sports and all the facilities that they had, and it was a really community initiative. And when I went to college, UCC, that's something I was able to bring and integrate into the center as well. And it's interesting that that kind of stuff, then I find that is what I really enjoy doing more so than the management part of it. Yeah. So hence then I left that. Well, I left that to travel, actually. I left University College Cork because I wanted to travel off around New Zealand. I remember leaving, and I remember my manager at the time saying to me, the advice he gave me going out the door was, don't work in the leisure industry, Suzanne. You have no interest in it. It's like, the way you think that you're hiding your lack of interest in your job from your manager, and you think you're doing a good job of that, and then the last word they say to you when you walk out the door is don't come back. So, and I was like, it's so true. I'd lost all interest in what I was doing because it wasn't innovating enough for me. I mean, once the programs are set up, they just run themselves. So the initial creative part of setting up the whole center to run was done. And then it was a matter of politics after that and just running things.
Yeah, because even the energy with which you said, and that was fine, it really wasn't, right? So you went to New Zealand anyway.
Yes, I went around New Zealand and I wanted to jump out of planes and skydive. I wanted to river raft. I just wanted to do, the bucket list you have. Well, it's really like everyone else's bucket list, that you make your own bucket list. So, and trek, and I did all of that around New Zealand, and subsequently, I really loved that. So when I come back from travel, I had no job. So I set up, I had no job. So I went back and I got a job doing PE teaching in a secondary school, which I find, when I don't know if your listeners or viewers would remember, well, if they're my vintage or in vintage, the career guidance you would have got at school. Like when I was in secondary school, the only two jobs that a woman could do was nurse, was one of them, and teacher, a nurse or a teacher. That was it. And there was nothing else outside that realm. So I always thought I wanted to be a PE teacher, because that's why everybody that plays sport wants to be a PE teacher. I mean, that's the job to have, isn't it? So I went PE teaching, and I found out that it's not at the time that I was teaching, they were just bringing in the curriculum for Leaving Cert as a PE is an examinable subject. So I find the environment in the schools was still very much send the kids down to blow off some energy in the PE hall, and then they didn't really care what you did with them. They didn't really have any interest, as long as you ran them around and they come back to the rest of their studies a little calmer. So getting through a curriculum was nearly impossible. And I find that with the PE teaching, and it has probably changed a lot now, that you weren't getting, there was no real teaching and trying to get through different sports. And to be honest, the best thing I learned in secondary school was the ability to stand in front of 30 sixth year students that had no interest in being there, towering above you, and being able to command that environment. That was the most and I find since that time, I have the ability to walk into any room and command the room, and control the variation and that was purely, like, I'd say that was the most powerful thing that I would have got from teaching, that ability to I wouldn't say control, but not to have the confidence to step up and get the process going.
Well, that's probably sort of a confidence in yourself that you get from playing team sports as well. That kind of natural leadership you get from being on a pitch with other people. So anyway, that's just my experience.
Yeah, do you know, leadership is not something I find it's interesting you say that in female sport. I don't think it's something that is coached in female sport. I think it's lost in translation. I find that and it's interesting, I find that moving back to Donegal, because I'm known, and my father and grandfather are known in the LGFA, and I'm known because I played county for Donegal, that you're all of a sudden expected to be a mentor and a leader.
Okay.
But that's just because you played, but there was no real journey with that. You know, you were on the pitch, you were kind of stumbling along with along team, trying to be cohesive with the team, and then you're off the pitch, and then you're trying to be that leader for kids off the pitch. But that's a very new in female sport. That's very much new with the see it and be it, and all of a sudden players from the past are kind of pushed into the, not pushed, but go, here, you played sport to a big level, you say something astounding to invigorate the youth, because you've been there, done that, you must be able to do that. And some people are very good at it, and other people, it's just, I suppose it's your personality, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I see that. I follow, because where I live now, I'm near Peamount United, so I kind of follow women's soccer in Ireland a bit more, and you see the same kind of patterns in that, where people get thrusted up into the front of the cameras and go like, you're Katie McCabe, you're one of the best players, you play for Arsenal, you lead this team, right? And you're like,
yeah. You inspire the youth of today. Yeah.
Anyway, back to all of that went on. You came back from New Zealand, and then how did you set up Cork Pilates? Where did that come from?
Well, it was interesting because I did a course. Part of my business development with the UCC was we integrated the National Training Centre in Dublin, which provides courses to train up instructors in gym and personal training and different things. So then we could, feed into the people that we need to work for us on the ground. So one of those initially, it was very new at the time, was Pilates. I went along and did it, and I loved it. And so I did the course and the qualification. Now, at the time when I did it, little did I think that this would be the thing that I would be using to get work. But when I came back from New Zealand, it was the start of the summer. There was no teaching available to September. I didn't want to go back into the area that I had the most experience, which was the leisure centre. So I set up some classes, and they went very well. And then I got my teaching in secondary school teaching, and I kept up the Pilates. And then I find that the more I taught, and then the more gigs I got, like with Munster Rugby, Irish rowing, I find that I could make a living. The same living I was making from teaching. I was getting the same kind of pay, able to manage. So I thought, well, it's either a case that I go to England and do a HTIP and get a full-time permanent position as a PE teacher, or I jump in and do the Pilates, make a business out of it. And as long as I'm earning the same as I'd earn as a teacher, was my thinking at the time, why don't we just go with that? So that was it.
So because like people listening into it go like, oh, it was really easy. I got contracts with Munster and Irish rowing, and it's like these didn't fall into your lap. This is because you had connections, right? Yeah,
it was, exactly. The connection to Munster Rugby came through because the gym that I was doing Pilates in, the Munster Rugby were attending those in the gym for training. And then I submitted my CV, and the reason I got that, because Jim Williams from Australia Pilates was a little bit bigger in Australia, and he was familiar with it. I happened to have the qualifications standing in front of him, and he was the one that pushed me in there because he knew that. Now, the rowing came along really because the new Inniscarra development was outside Cork, so the new area for the Irish rowing, and they were coming down from Dublin. So I got a call from an instructor in Dublin that found me with my full qualifications and said, look, they're looking for somebody out. But then, of course, with all these things, the key is that you have to gel with the vision of the coach. You can't, it's not a matter of you going in and go, this is what I want to do. Like, you're part of a collective team, and you're working with physios, you're working with the coach and vision. You have to slot very much into their rest days. So even though all of these opportunities were good, they're not, as I would say, they take more energy and time than you would get payment for. But then, of course, you can use these things then as marketing for yourself. But they're not consistent because you're just there as part of the season with them. Yeah, unless you can get a full-time gig.
So how long did you run Cork Pilates in Cork for then, Suzanne?
Well, I was there 2006, I set it up. Right. And it's still Cork Pilates, actually. I haven't changed it yet. So that is 2006 to 2023.
What did they think in Donegal about going to Cork Pilates?
I know, exactly. But you know, my business is online now, so I'm very much national. Everyone's nationally now. Even the people in Cork, I think majority are actually moved out to different areas in West Cork and Kerry at this stage through pandemic and certain other things and work. So yes, Donegal it's still a market I have to break into from an online business point of view, but I do take one-to-one clients here, which I find which is no problem. Yeah.
So you said you moved back to Donegal 2 years ago?
Yeah.
With the Corkman, in tow.
In tow, absolutely. Not even a Corkman, a Coveman, which is like double Cork. But it was very much like you promote yourself. It was lifestyle. It was a lifestyle choice. For us. The lifestyle again became more of an option when everything went online for me, because if it wasn't for online, I would have had to close up and shut down and take nothing with me, none of the business that I'd built over all of those years. And then through options as well, Mike, because different opportunities come up because Mike works in the hospitals, opportunities come up for him. So it was a no-brainer then at the end when we talked about, and even the advice our family was giving us, our parents were giving us, you know, and everyone keeps saying the same thing to you, then you got to just take heed and stop fighting the fight of staying where you are and making that lifestyle choice of moving home and taking the pressure financially off yourself.
Okay, cool. And that's true. So that was in the middle of the pandemic then?
Yeah, that was the middle of the pandemic. Yeah, we moved and when it was level 3, I think you remember, because we couldn't even ask family to help us move. We had to get professional movers, and then, you know, move things. We had to move everything back to Kellybegs first, and then so it was very much an isolated move. And it probably helped. It helped really much. It helped a lot at the start because it gave you time to kind of, you know, in COVID, it didn't matter what house you're in, you're still confined to a house. So it could be a house in Cork or a house in Donegal at the time. So yeah, that kind of made it a little easier. It was just a change of scene.
No, I moved in the middle of COVID as well. We actually had to get a letter from a solicitor to give to the removal company, so if their van got stopped on the M7, that, like, you know, they were able to. Anyway,
isn't it mad when you think about it?
When you think back only 2 years ago or 3 years ago, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you do more than just Pilates, I think, right? So what is your online business now that you're running from Donegal? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's the move back to Donegal not only took financial pressure off us, and with that kind of financial pressure release, it's offered me the opportunity business wise to, you know, draw a line. And I felt initially before we moved that I was in the process of change, and I was working on change, but it's very hard to let go of things that you know that is working and then move into something that you're not quite sure will work. So when there's no kind of, when I moved back to Donegal, I was able to and had the freedom to kind of figure out, okay, this is where I feel my business could go to, because the classes that I was doing were great, and I have clients that are with me, you know, 15, 16 years, and they're still with me. So I didn't want to give up on those, but I still, over time, I've always done continual education. I'm always very, very interested in the latest science that is coming out, especially to do with embody the feeble form in performance in sport. And I'm drawn to women with courage that are out kind of performing in sport and ways to help them embody the femininity of the physiology of yourself, where that's to the emotional side or to the physiology side, where is it to do with pelvic floor or hips or whatever. So with the hub now that I've set up, I'm able to not only teach the Pilates, I'm also able to go into targeted areas that have interest and research in, and provide programs in those areas that I think is just able to evolve with the times and evolve with the science that is coming out now, especially with this huge, push for females in sport now, and all the research that is coming back from all over the world, about bone density, about training times through your cycle, about hormones. I mean, as I did my training as an exercise physiologist, and when you're working with elite sports people, it's all about efficiency. And then you get to work with the Joe Soap, and it's like shoulder down, drive forward. There's no caution or no talk of efficiency. It's just, feel the burn. So thank God that's evolving now, and that's evolving. I think it's really an important thing, an important point of evolution when it comes to the female form, because I don't think it's innately in females, not all of us anyway, to drive and push and shove and strength forward. And there's a lot of things that we're missing that you could bring from a point of view of physiology that gets you the same results, but you're more working with your own form and your own physiology to get there. There's not just one way.
Yeah, no, I understand, because from a personal point of view, from my long distance running, these people that shout no pain, no gain. I mean, and for me, it's like no pain, more miles, right? That's it's a different strategy.
That is it in a nutshell. I know that you have certain ways yourself that you keep the fun and the enjoyment in your racing, and it's yeah, exactly. It's not the case of head down, shoulders rounded, drive forward. That's not how you enjoy your run at all, Patrick.
No, but it's the same with every sport. So you mentioned the hub. Is that an online? Is that your online business that you've created?
It is, yeah. I started off like everyone else on kind of putting my stuff on YouTube, and then I had such a collection of videos and instructor videos that I was trying to give out to my clients that it became impossible, because they had like more links on the email than writing on the email. So thank God, one of the innovations now with COVID is all of these different platforms now that you can use, like Vimeo and Searchy and Kajabi, that you can, pit your classes and programs up that people can follow. And then people can tip up in and out and hit the replays, or be a little bit more targeted for themselves. If it was a glute release the need, or quad strength of the lead, they can be a little more. And a lot of the stuff in the hub is student empowerment, for you to know your body well enough to know what you need when you need it, so you can dip in and out and just go with day to day what your body needs. And it's really about education in that.
Is that a pick and go system, or is it a membership forum?
It's a membership. Sorry, yeah, it's a membership. It's a monthly membership option that I offer. That people can attend live classes if they can make the time. So it's kind of 50-50 at the minute. I have a lot of people that can't make the live times and hit the recordings, or people that like the interaction of showing up for the live classes. So both is available there. And then with the hub, then each program I do has a different focus, and evolves in each way, each focus. So every so often, every 8 weeks, I change the focus. Because remember, Pilates is just 34 exercises, and everything else is modification around it to suit our bodies. So to keep everything fresh and to bring the latest research in, I try and take a different focus. Like the moment is about mind and motion. So I bring in a little neurology, because I did a neurology and Pilates course from California during COVID. So it's just little techniques about peripheral vision, about connection from tail to heel, all this kind of stuff, a little tweaks that can give you a much more feedback in your body than you would get just doing the same exercise over and over.
So people who are listening in or watching this, and they hear, oh, maybe I need to have a look at the hub, where would they find that back, Suzanne?
Well, I'm on Facebook. Suzanne Griffin or Cork Pilates will get me there, and also Instagram. The handle is Cork Pilates on Instagram. And my website is corkpilates.ie.
So that's where they find all Cork Pilates, yeah. All the way from Donegal.
Yeah, well, Suzanne Griffin will get me as well.
yeah, Suzanne Griffin or Cork Pilates. And that's where they find back about the hub and the other things you do.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you any future plans you want to share with us? Is there anything in the pipeline that you think might be interesting?
Well, I really wanted to like surf this crest of female empowerment that is going ahead, and I'd love to. Well, I find I'm really good at taking the science from the academic point of view and be able to transfer it into the stuff that people can do day to day. So that kind of line of separation between the academia and the general stuff people can do with their activities, and tend to maybe work on that a little bit more to be able to bring things through a little bit faster to the public than what they're coming through at the minute. So that, and working in the area of at the minute I'm working with young girls from a football point of view, but being able to work on bravery with those, and bravery to sit into their feminine body or their female body, and to lean into that as a sports person as they grow. That's definitely an area that I'm excited about.
Cool. So keep an eye out on Cork Pilates and all the social media for that. So
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Patrick.
You're still involved in GA, yeah?
Yes. By default, when I come back, a little bit in Cork, but by default, when I come back, I started working with the county under-16s and player development pathway, because I had a little bit of time, and I wanted to be able to transfer my knowledge that I know from my playing days until now to the younger players of today. And then I took on the under-10 coach position this year. But I did notice now from my work last year, I didn't have any experience really of working with youth apart from school. And I did notice at the under-16 level, there was already a kind of a dissociation with their body, and not being, knowledge about their body and how to move and how to own their body movement, and how, that's the only piece of real estate that they own on the pitch. But when I go back to my under-10s, and I have to say my under-10s, I'm there because my daughter plays. But they're at that stage now, they have no inhibitions. They can do everything, be everything. There's there's no inhibitions about their body whatsoever. So I'm very interested to see, and I'm working with the 10s, working with the 16s, where that, at what point does that disappear?
Yeah, it's a bit like in education, right? And I'm going to say this is entirely my own quote. Nobody needs to agree or disagree with me, but like when I watch people like Sir Ken Robinson, the TED Talks he gave, it says like our education system is there to educate the creativity out of us, rather than into us, right? Yeah. So when does that happen? Why does that happen? And how can we bridge that gap? And that's in a space you sit beautifully in from listening to you. So I'm looking forward to see what you come up with.
Absolutely. I mean, I was listening. Yeah, absolutely. The bravery is there, but at some point it goes from from a female athlete. It goes from maybe thinking that the problem is with them, and then I think with the male athletes, they never think the problem is with them. The problem is with the sport. So, but I think that's it. That is. I think that's just a little bit of rewiring of our message. Yes. And the coaching message as well, because I always feel, and I know from my own experiences, that because we're majority of females are taught by male coaches who were trained by male coaches, and I think that from a female point of view in sport, in my experience, the females are or girls are always kind of initially started to coach from a point that there's something missing, that they're lacking in something before they even start. And I hope that will change, because from a coaching point of view, women are there to play female sports, so there's nothing missing from that equation. Yeah,
I get it. It's a bit like when you listen to Vera Pauw. Her message is completely different. Vera Pauw, the Irish soccer manager.
Yes.
Her message is completely different.
Isn't it? Yeah. I think every female, no matter what sport you play, would love a Vera to be coaching. I would have loved her. Oh my God, I would have loved her as a coach. A little bit of Vera and all our coaches, I think, is what we definitely need.
Cool. So people can look you up on Cork Pilates or Suzanne Griffin. Now I have two questions for you, Suzanne, if that's okay, related to what the channels are about and the radio show is about. Everyone has their own version of success. So as people know listening, mine is having a life while making a living. So what does success mean to you?
Success for me is empowering my clients to gain a deeper knowledge of their body, and to, and for that will increase longevity and ease of movement going forward. So it's really about just empowering my clients' success, empowering clients to be more knowledgeable about their own body.
Yeah, I call that servant leadership, but that's just my words. It's like you're actually serving them to become better for themselves.
Yeah, well, it's so inspiring. Like, courage just totally inspires me. When I get message from clients going, yeah, I'm just ambling up Guggenbarra, or I'm just doing this, and it's all about life experience. That's why you want to move well and be well, is to experience life, and that really warms my heart when I get those messages.
Awesome. You mentioned Guggenbarra. Is success to you going up Mount Errigal as well?
Yes, well, I took up hill running, trail running, because I love Donegal. Now, I love Donegal, from putting on the Donegal shirt. And, even in Cork, it was always a very good attribute. And everyone loved that I was from Donegal, loved my Donegal accent, even though each time I came back from home on holiday, nobody could understand me for at least a week. And I get mistaken for being Canadian quite a lot.
Canadian, right? Okay.
Canadian in Cork. I think it was just me trying to put my teacher's voice on and be understood. So yeah.
So Mount Errigal, you do the hill running. That's what you're.
I just started. Yeah, sorry. I love the outdoors. And I'm not a marathon runner. And I love, I think I have a little bit of a wild spirit in me, and because I was brought up in a football pitch, I'm not averse to muck and mud and wet and freezing conditions, because that's just the glamour of ladies JA. So being out in the wilds, it's something I do, and because of my Pilates and my body's in good shape from that, my body's pretty good at that of the rough and tumble of the trail. Not so good from a marathon point of view like yourself, or any kind of long-term endurance. And because I did so much competitive stuff when I was younger, I've no interest in racing or anything that puts me under pressure, because I did that for a long time. And I just love being out. So I took that up, and do you know what? It's getting me to actually go and investigate Donegal for myself, areas that I have never been.
Awesome. Good luck with that. And you see, I picked that up from, I think, was it Instagram that you were running up there? Yeah.
I try and think when I'm out running, what am I using? What tips can I pass on?
Yes.
To my clients that I'm using when I'm out and about, so that they can think of them then, if they're out and about,
Yeah. So still, when you're out having fun, you're still serving other people. It's amazing, isn't it, when we start doing that? Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting, isn't it? Because you think what people will need when they're out, but until you're out in the midst of it, and you think, well, what actually am I thinking? And like certain things I would never have thought about is how the cold affected my nervous system, and how I was tightening up due to the cold, or the negative thoughts that you can get when you're really tired. And you start to question yourself, and you're like, oh my God, I'm telling my clients never to say this to themselves, and here I am absolutely taking pieces out of myself, for being tired and not being able to keep up. And so you're thinking, well, if I'm thinking that, God, what are my clients thinking?
Yeah. No, but it's good to do that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're going to finish off now, Suzanne. Thanks for your time. We're going to finish off with one more thing, one tip that you say, like, look, if you take away one thing from this particular call, something that the listeners or the viewers can take away and start doing right now, what would your really tip be?
Well, the tip I would give is that tension impedes movement. So if you're feeling stress or tension in the body, it's going to impede your movement. And the best way to deal with that is to start to move. If you feel tension come into the body, start to move, start to stretch, get up off your seat, walk around, roll the shoulders out, move the back, but don't let it congest, because tension does impede, and then everything gets a little bit more stickier to move. So being proactive, and if you feel stress or tension coming into your body, wherever part of the body it is, get up and move it.
Fantastic. And if you don't know how to make those movements, sign up for the hub. That's the tip.
Woohoo! Yes, that was a good lead-in.
Suzanne, thanks so much for taking your time to talk to us here, and good luck with the hub and all your future plans.
Oh, thanks, Patrick. Thank you so much.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.